Republican Senator Tom Cotton of Arkansas joins us now. He's a member of the Senate Judiciary, Intelligence, and Armed Services Committees. Senator, welcome. Great to have you on our program. What is the risk with the rush to judgment that we're seeing in cases like this?
Sandra, we should never rush to judgment. The videos that get released on social media are often clipped or taken out of context. We should wait in all cases until there's a neutral and thorough fact-finding inquiry. Now, I will say the video I've seen suggests that this officer acted to protect an innocent life in the middle of an attempted murder. I won't reach a final conclusion until I see all the evidence, though, but it really is appalling to have celebrities like LeBron James, who will turn a blind eye to genocide in China to make a few bucks there, immediately jumping to the conclusion that a police officer is racist and committed cold-blooded murder.
You know, you tweeted back at LeBron James saying, quote, LeBron James is inciting violence against an Ohio police officer. This is disgraceful and dangerous. Is the NBA okay with this? Is Twitter? LeBron James has got some 50 million followers. And when a person of his stature in the sports world and on Twitter puts up something like that, what's the potential danger? Because I know he took it down because he said it was being used to spread hate. And I'm kind of wondering what he thought would happen if he put it up.
Yeah, John, what LeBron James did is especially appalling. He didn't just jump to conclusions and say this officer committed cold-blooded murder. He posted the officer's photograph and he said, "You're next." What did he expect to happen? He took it down because he realized just how wrong it was. But he owes this officer an apology. And frankly, he and Joe Biden owe the brave men and women of law enforcement around our country an apology. This is just one more example, though, of Joe Biden and the left's war on the police, immediately jumping to conclusions, calling the police racist, posting photos of them online and saying, "You're next."
Do you believe that to be the case? We just played out that sound from Jen Psaki speaking at the White House, injecting racism into this without any actual evidence of that. Do you believe that this is an administration at war with the police?
Yes, I do, Sandra. Yesterday, Joe Biden's mouthpiece immediately jumped to conclusion that this officer was racist. And let's recall, again, although we shouldn't reach a conclusion until all the evidence is in, it is obvious from the video that we've seen that the person who was shot had a knife and was about to stab another person. We should wait until we find the facts. We shouldn't jump to the conclusion and start throwing around accusation of racism, but it's just part and parcel of what the Biden administration is doing. Just yesterday, they announced that they're going to come down on the Minneapolis Police Department like a ton of bricks. This is a police department, I remind you, in which the chief of police and multiple other officers just testified for the prosecution against one of their fellow officers who was found guilty of murder.
I thought what Ned Pettis, who is the director of public safety in Columbus, Ohio, said yesterday was particularly salient when he said, look, this is a tragedy. There's no question about that. A 16-year-old girl is dead as a result of actions that occurred on that day. But he said that the body cam video shows that there's a lot more to this story than a lot of people might think initially, that this needs to be investigated. There needs to be a pause here as all of the facts are reviewed and exactly what happened here is investigated and uncovered. Yet there are a lot of people, Senator, who don't appear willing to wait.
Well, they should wait because, again, one single video never tells the full story, at least until you know that there's no other aspects to the story. That officer is correct. You shouldn't jump to these conclusions. You can all see with your own eyes that the person who was shot did have a knife. It appeared that she was trying to commit attempted murder. I don't want to wait till all the other facts on until I reach a final and definitive conclusion. But no one should jump to conclusions about what the police do in these encounters. Look, I've spoken to many police over the years. The last thing they want to do is have an encounter in which they have to use force that results in the loss of life. It is a traumatic experience for everyone. It's always a tragedy when there is a loss of life. But the police are also there to keep us safe. And sometimes when criminals are using force, the police have to use force as well, including deadly force. That does not mean that that deadly use of force was inappropriate in all cases.
We'll let the investigation play out, and we'll likely be discussing that until then. Meanwhile, it is Earth Day, Senator, and you are hearing a lot from Democrats on their plans for climate change and what they plan to do to address what has been a key priority for this administration. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is now saying that climate change, that race it has had a big to do with climate change as a result of it. Listen.
We must recognize in legislation that the trampling of indigenous rights is a cause of climate change. The trampling of racial justice is a cause of climate change, because we are allowing people and we are allowing ourselves to make sure, we are allowing folks to deny ourselves human rights and deny people the right to health care, the right to housing and education.
Senator, is climate change the result of racial injustice?
I'm not exactly following that logic, Sandra, but what I'm worried about denying people is a right to earn a living. And Joe Biden has announced that he wants to cut all of our carbon emissions in this country in half in just 9 years by 2030. To give you a sense of how radical it is, that would be the equivalent of taking every car in America off the road, shutting down every power plant. That would kill millions of jobs in the oil and gas sector, in mining, in transportation. At a time when the United States leads the world in carbon emissions, even though we properly left the Paris Climate Accord, we still continue to lead the world in carbon emission reductions. Who leads the world in carbon emission growth? It's China. And yet again, Joe Biden is turning a blind eye to what our adversaries are doing and blaming America for this problem, when in fact America is the world leader in carbon emission reductions.
It would seem for the Democrats that everything is about climate change. The Joe Biden climate program certainly takes us way left of where we were for the last 4 years, but that's still not enough. For environmental activists, we have some interesting video that we want to show you here. You probably can't see it, Senator, but it's a group of environmental activists outside of the White House with pink wheelbarrows of manure. Now, I take it this is garden manure and not the raw stuff. Outside of the White House there at 17th and Pennsylvania, they dumped a bunch of it right there at E Street and 17th. So as radical as the agenda may seem, these people do not believe it's radical enough.
Well, John, we both believe that Joe Biden's plan is a farce. I just think we have different reasons for believing so. But that imagery makes me think of the old Ronald Reagan story about a Democrat digging through a pile of horse manure, thinking there must be a pony in there somewhere.
I remember that one.
Senator, I guess I could just conclude by asking you, you've seen so many of these big financial firms. They've made big public commitments to be net zero emissions by 2030. In recent days, you've seen some of them back out of that, not prepared to even commit to that. While it looked good publicly, now you've got the Biden administration saying that they're really going to be leaning on these private companies in a big way also to fund a lot of this.
Well, I think by leaning on them, Sandra, they mean extorting them with the threat of higher taxes and more regulation if they don't put the power of their businesses behind Joe Biden's far-left progressive agenda, which the government should never do. But, you know, a lot of these corporate CEOs have kind of been asking for this because they continue to bow at the altar of political correctness. They think that somehow that they can get Bernie Sanders and Joe Biden's election laws without getting their tax and their regulatory laws as well.
It's going to be interesting to see who shows up. Senator Tom Cotton, appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
I hope you find a pony one day, Senator. Thanks.